Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. This time out, a unique solution for stereo guitar amping on stage using a single amplifier. Let's get started. What you heard during the introduction to this video was our own Don Carr playing through a Helix LT from line 6. The Helix was being routed through a Spacestation V.3 from Aspen Pittman Designs. This is a unique amplifier that provides stereo sound out of a single unit. Traditionally, when you're working with stereo guitar sounds, you need to have two amplifiers, and there are some issues with that. Number one, you need to have two amplifiers, so it's more gear to carry. But also, stereo guitar amplifiers tend to beam when you're working out of a traditional guitar amplifier. You tend to get kind of a flashlight effect. You're not spreading the stereo sound out across the room, and your bandmates on stage also aren't hearing that stereo effect because typically they're to the side or even behind you. With the Spacestation V.3, all those problems are solved. You get the same stereo image whether you're standing in front of the amplifier, whether you're out in the audience, whether you're on stage, no matter where you are in the room. The Spacestation V.3 is a lightweight compact unit. It comes in at less than 32 pounds, so it's very easy to take to the gig. It features 280 watts of power, and that power is driving 4 speakers. We have a front-facing speaker, a mid-range driver, and a tweeter, as well as a side-facing speaker. The front-facing speaker and the side-facing speaker work together to create what's called mid-side stereo. That means that the sound is coming out of the two sides of the amplifier, and there's also a center sound coming out of the front. We're actually also using a mid-side microphone technique to pick things up in the room, and that's giving you a nice wide stereo image and a good impression of what it sounds like, what we're actually hearing here in our video studio. The Spacestation V.3 uses what's called center point stereo technology. This is a patented technology that Aspen Pittman Designs has come up with to disperse the sound to the sides and to the front, and that's what allows us to hear the same stereo image no matter where we are in the room. We'll be demonstrating that for you a little bit later. We'll move the microphones around the room, and you'll hear how consistent that stereo image is. One of the advantages to center point stereo technology is that we have a strong center to our image. With two traditional guitar amplifiers in a stereo arrangement, you end up with what's called a phantom center. And that's not a real present center. You hear that a lot with stereo sounds. It actually drops back in the mix because it doesn't have that presence from the center. With the center point stereo technology in the space station, we have that strong center, and in fact we can adjust how much of the sides we're hearing, so we can adjust the width of that stereo field without affecting how strong the sound is coming right out of the center. This gives you a lot more presence on stage. So I'm joined once again by Don Carr, who's going to do some playing for us. Let's take a closer look at the space station. First of all, I want to turn this to the side because we have a very unique side speaker here. From this angle you can see we have a very interesting design with the side speaker. It's mounted in the center of the amplifier and facing to one side, but sound is actually dispersing out of both sides at the same time. And in fact, if you look closely, there's a hole in the center of this speaker driver. That hole allows the high frequencies to emanate out of both sides of the speaker. With a traditional speaker design, you don't want that. In this case, we want high frequencies to go out of both sides, as well as the mids and the lows. Both of the primary speaker drivers inside the space station were custom made by Emanates, and they're manufactured in the United States. Now we have a lot of control over those speakers. Let's take a look at how it works. So we'll turn the space station around and take a look at the back panel. The connections are very straight ahead on the space station. We have a stereo pair, and in this case we're feeding those from the stereo output from our Line 6 Helix LT. The other connection on the back panel is labeled sub out, and you could use that to drive a subwoofer to reinforce your low frequencies if you're drop tuning, you're playing a keyboard through this, or running a full range mix through it. It works great for that. But it's actually a full range output. It has all the frequencies. So you could route this out to your front of house mixer and reinforce your sound through a PA system. Or you could route this to an additional dedicated amplifier, and in that case you're reinforcing what's coming out of the center speaker on the space station. And as we'll see, we have control over the side speakers here, so we can control the width. So if we're using a dedicated guitar amplifier to reinforce that center image in a louder situation where you have a louder drummer or a louder band, you can still bring up the width and increase that stereo image as well and keep things balanced. We have 4 controls for managing the drivers inside the space station. As I mentioned, we have 2 primary speakers, the front and the side. We also have a mid-range speaker and a high frequency driver. Those are driven by 280 watts of power, and in fact there's a separate amplifier section for each of those drivers. And we have separate control over the level of each of those drivers as well. Our first control is labeled level, and that's sort of our master volume control. It also sets the level of the primary driver in the front. Next up, we have our width control. That sets the volume for the side speaker, and that's what determines the width of our stereo image. For controlling the level of the mid-range and high-frequency drivers, we have dedicated knobs as well. Now we'll have Don play some examples for us, and I'll turn the width control up and down so you can hear the effect of the space station going from mono to stereo. We'll begin with the width control turned all the way down, so we'll be getting a mono signal just like you'd be hearing out of a conventional guitar amplifier. Don? Now I'll have Don play, and I'll bring up the width control, and you'll hear the width of the stereo image increase. Go ahead. The effect is very dramatic. We hear it go from a point source, or a mono signal, all the way to a wide stereo image that's very lush, that really fills the video studio we're in here. Now to demonstrate how consistent that is no matter where you are in the room, we're going to move our microphones around. So what we'll do here is I'll have Don play. We have our microphones set in the center of the room, then we'll move them way over to my left, way over to my right. Now one thing you'll want to notice is that in fact we have the amplifier facing backward. The center speaker is pointing toward the rear of the room, but because of the way the space station works, bouncing sound off the walls and creating its stereo image in such a lush way using all those surfaces, it doesn't matter. We can face the amplifier pretty much any direction we want. So Don, go ahead and play for us. Our microphones are right in the center of the room. Now we'll move the microphones all the way to my left. As you can hear, the stereo image is very consistent even when we're off center, when we're off to the side of the room. Now we'll move to the other side of the room so we can compare that. Once again, the thing to notice is how consistent that stereo image is no matter where we place the microphones. In a situation where you're playing live, this translates to your audience. No matter where the audience is sitting in the room, they'll hear the same stereo image that you're hearing on stage and that your bandmates are also hearing. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Spacestation V.3 from Aspen Pittman Designs. It's a unique solution that allows you to have stereo sound from one compact, lightweight unit. It sounds great no matter where you're at in the room. I really recommend you check this one out. Thanks for joining me for Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. Be sure to tune in next time. We'll have more guitars, more amps, more effects, and we'll be making lots of music. I'm Mitch Gallagher.